Well, dude, I feel like we haven't done one of these catch-ups in like a long time. Like, not time constrained or anything.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. You've tried a couple things over the last few years. You're obviously in the same team and camp and everything, but this is year 11.
Yeah.
What feels different about this year and what's kind of been like the journey the last year and a half, from where you were the last time we talked?
I think the biggest thing is obviously just maturing and growing older. I mean, I think, obviously I'm just at a much different place than I was a couple years ago. I mean, you turn like even from early 20s to mid 20s. I mean, it just, your maturity kind of goes up a lot. I think the biggest thing is like, with your competitors, it's difficult to be in such a different age range, I would say. When you're racing with kids, it's a lot easier for them to just go for everything. You're racing with a much younger group of guys, and then as you get older, you start to kind of think yourself out of a lot of things, like because you know so much more, all the different ways that you can do things, and you try so much, and then in the end, it was better if you just keep your foot in it and go. And so I think over the years, it's been since the last time we met, obviously I think I've learned so much, and it's helped a lot, but it also hurts. And so I think, the progress that I've made, at least as a driver, has just been trying to dumb it back down a lot of the time, trying to not think myself out of things, and remember, you're competing against much younger people, and, they're fast normally just because they're not overthinking it. They're just going by the seat of their pants and going by feeling, and I think that's really what it's been about. But I think also, we have been racing against more mature drivers. I think the driving has definitely gotten a lot more mature and more strategic. I think a lot of these younger kids have gotten, their racecraft is really good, and they're able to do things with the karts that, not that I never could, but it's just stuff that you never have seen before. And every year there's new drivers. And so I think trying to adapt to all the different styles, all the different aggression levels, and really knowing how to place the kart throughout the day, I think is really been the biggest thing, and just managing the day as a whole, just because there's a lot more ups and downs than normal.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, you've been racing at a lot of the same tracks, on the same tire brand, same go-kart brand for a while, but, how much does it change year over year, and how much do you have to almost kind of throw out the old way of thinking, that whereas the new kids coming in don't know any other way to think of how to drive?
I think a lot. I think it happens more than I'd like to know. I mean, obviously, having the experience helps a lot in certain situations, but when you're going against kids that have no experience, when you're anticipating them doing something, odds are they don't do it, because they've never been in that spot before. So they're not going to do the traditional tactic. They're going to, block a different way. They're going to pass you in a different way. And so I think that whole aspect of racing has changed a lot. In pretty much every race that I'm at, you've kind of got to start from scratch. Even the first round of the Winter Series to the second round of the Winter Series, it's the same track, same tires, same configuration. I mean, everything's the same, but your setups are quite a bit different. And so I think the only thing the experience is teaching me is to not trust the experience fully. I think it's telling me I know that's what you feel, but remember that you've been here before, where you went with your gut and you went with what you knew, and that's not right. And so I think that's what the biggest thing of my experience has been telling me, try to always keep an open mind, especially when you're racing, because the kids that you're racing they're just from a different era. They don't race like how you normally race. I think the best example of it, it's not even my race, but when Joe was racing Dalton and he got passed in turn 6, that's just a corner you don't get passed in. You don't pass there, and so that's an example of the younger generation of kids, and not that Dalton's younger, but he's a younger generation, and they just do things differently. They pass in places you wouldn't think, and they make moves in spots you wouldn't normally anticipate. And so it's, always being on guard and trying to really start fresh as often as you can, because it just, you can fall into habits, and, after years, those will get set in, and they'll pull you right out of the top 5.
You obviously have been pretty good about, being able to kind of ride the middle mentally, not getting too high or too low, because you have had really, really hot streaks, and then here and there, obviously a lot less than the hot streaks, but some cold streaks too. But being with the same team for the last couple of years, I'm sure you probably feel even more and more established as each year goes on. So, how, say, if you could think back even to just 2 years ago or 4 years ago, at this point in the seasons, staring down a new year, having just lined everything up of what your plans are, how much more comfortable or relaxed are you coming up to the track and going to the grid?
I don't know. I feel like, as you get older, there is I wouldn't say a clock on your career, but there's essentially a clock on your career. There's a limited amount of time you have left, and the way I view it and the way it's gone as I've gotten older is that, everybody's anticipating the fall off. And right now for me, it's more about, obviously staring at the beginning of the season, you got everything. I feel almost less comfortable than I have in years past, because I feel that everybody's waiting for the moment for it to stop. You're getting 26, 27. Most guys don't race this long. And most of the guys that I raced when I was 16, 17, that were 26, 27, weren't that good. And so it's like you always knew, like, once they get around a certain age, they're just kind of done. And so I feel that from the competitors, and I wouldn't say from my team, but I put that pressure on myself of, like, I think everybody's anticipating, like, when do you want to be done? When is that next time? And I would like to be the one to decide that. And I don't want it to be decided for me. And so for me to have that decision and to be able to, call it quits when I want to, I have to perform as good as anybody else. And so I think that's really, at the beginning of this year, the difference between 2 years ago is 2 years ago, I think I was still hungry to, just go out there and beat everybody as much as I can. And now it's more, I'm doing this for myself to stay in the sport and to, do it as long as I need to do it. And I don't think I get any pressure from the team or anything like that, because that's not how I want it to seem. But it's more that pressure that I put on myself of, like, you are older, you are more mature, but we can't let this be the end. You have to be the one to determine when you're done. And if you want to get lazy and let somebody else determine that, you can't. But that's not how I want to do it. I want to be the one that's, like, at the end of a killer season, I can say, I'm done. But I don't want to do that yet. So I got to make sure I still have a killer season every single season, because, I want to be the one to decide when it's over for me.
What do you think would be the decision maker for you, where you would finally be like, okay, I think I'm good?
I don't know, man. I mean, 9 championships, 10, it's all just numbers. I'm more like, I've never really, I have the championships, but it's more like everybody says the next one's always, like, what's important. And it's hard for me to, like, look at the end of a career and be like, I'm finished, I'm satisfied, because you never are. Every time, like, as soon as you finish the championship, you want to go win the next one. You want to go do it again. You want to keep proving it. And, like, every year I'm just as hungry as I was the year before, because I want to just keep proving it and proving it and proving it. So I don't know when that time's going to be. That's obviously something that I have to talk to the team and Shelby and, my family, and kind of figure out what that would look like. But for now, between racing and my academy and the races that we do, I'm finding a good balance for my life, and I really enjoy it. But I also just really enjoy racing. Like, you just get that itch. I mean, you get it too, where it's like, you do the broadcasting, but you still want to race because you're here because you love the sport. And for me, it's like I do it because I still love it, and I think I'm still good at it. So, if I wasn't good at it, that's one thing of, like, stepping aside and let somebody else younger take a spot. But I still feel like I still have it, and while I have it, I want to drive. Like, I'm going to drive until I don't have it. And so, like I said, I mean, it's tough, and I want to be the one to determine when that is. I don't think it's soon, but I mean, you get older, you have to start thinking about what's next in life.
Yeah, I mean, talking about just 2 years ago to where you are now. You're engaged.
Yeah.
You bought a house.
Yeah. Life stuff.
Yeah, no, big life stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, talk to me about that, because I mean, obviously, you know, you publicly announced both pretty quickly altogether.
Yeah.
I'm, you know, buying a house is not an overnight process, but I mean, just the last 6 months, dude, what's that been like?
It's been a lot. I mean, obviously, I got engaged to Shelby, which is amazing. It's been the best thing that's ever happened, and we did buy a house, and so there's a lot of like real life that you're balancing, you know, and that's just part of it. You know, when you ask to be in such a crazy career, you know, I'm a professional go-kart driver. Like, not many people get to do that. So, you know, it's difficult to manage all these things. But it's not impossible. And I think that's part of the challenges of what, you know, you're dealing with is like, you know, you're racing against kids that their biggest worry is school and how they do at the racetrack. And mine is like, you know, my academy, I have bills to pay, I have my rent, obviously planning a wedding. There's like a ton of things on top of racing, and you're coaching the drivers here, you know, and you want other guys to do well. And so it is more stressful, but I think that's part of the new challenge of it. And I think that's why I feel still like very new with everything, and I'm still hungry, because every time I'm here, there's another challenge or something else you're balancing while you're racing. And yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty busy 6 months, and you know, we started our team as well, like our little regional team that goes around, which it's been a lot of traveling. Yeah, it's been busy. I mean, I don't know how else to say it except for busy. I feel like I'm just like started and I'm still in the same like motion. I feel like I don't leave the track, so it's just always like the same day. But it's fun. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm like so excited, and I'm happy that I've been able to manage it all. And I just want to keep doing more. You know, I just want to try to excel more, and I've kind of let my YouTube stuff fall off, which is something that's been a big passion of mine. So I want to make sure I get back to that, because that's something I always really had fun with. And it's just been kind of pushed to the side now that the racing's been so busy. So yeah, I mean, trying to get back to more about like, you know, what the things that I have fun with, but it's been busy, but it's been fun. I mean, racing you're just always on the go, and I think it fits my lifestyle to be just like going as fast as I can all the time.
With all of these exciting things that, you know, not only I'm sure buying a house, getting engaged, and looking ahead, obviously at some point to get married, and have a wedding, does that put race weekends in a different light, or, you know, lesser important perspective than a couple of years ago when you were showing up?
It puts the losses in a different perspective. I think I take, you know, losses a lot better, just because you don't really have time to dwell on it, because you've got like something else that's coming up tomorrow. So you can't really sit there and mope about it too much. But as far as like winning races and stuff, it doesn't. You know, that's the one thing that I love about racing is as soon as you put the helmet on and the visor's down, you're back to like full on hard racing, and you don't think about anything else. And so for me, it's nice that like it's almost a relief, you know, being able to go out there and compete. And, you know, when I come in off the racetrack, nobody is talking about all the other things I'm doing in life. It's like we're back to like just grinding on the kart. What can we do? How can we fix it? Everybody's in that same mindset, and it's addicting because you can kind of escape just all of the other stresses in life, and you can just work on going fast. And I think that's another thing that just keeps me in it, because it's just such a drug in the sense that you just get that relief of like, I get to stress about just racing for a little bit and like kind of block everything out, which is, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, but racing is a constant of like, it's just so busy. You don't really have time to like really let anything bother you if you're going to do it well.
Well, we posted one of the throwback clips from Winter Series, all the way back to the one where you and Arias were battling years ago, and you had just come off. I think it was off the 2020 season into 21. And I had said on the broadcast about ending a winless streak for you, and we don't talk about that with a lot of other guys because you win so much that it's so rare when you don't. But whenever you do break through whatever the obstacle it was that was holding you back, if you look on your history, like the floodgates have opened.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously, the storyline that you and Joe have had.
Yeah.
Right? It's been not totally lopsided like it would show. And even Joe mentioned that talking to him yesterday.
Yeah.
Right? That, you've beaten him on track together. You beat him in the pre-final last, and last race, obviously you had him beat.
Yeah.
So how do you feel with that? Does that feel kind of like one of those seasons where you guys couldn't break through in the same kind of way?
When I raced Joe, yeah. When I raced Joe, it is obviously like, you don't count it like, like he's saying, like it's been evenly matched. But at the end of the day, it's still second. I lost that race by, I forget, less than a tenth, but it's still second, and at the end of the day, when we're racing one another, I haven't been able to win a race that he's been in. So yeah, it does weigh on you, and it is something where it's like, I know once I get it, it's gonna be open season, because you just gotta get it. But it's been nice racing with Joe. I mean, it's not in the same sense of like some of the other winless streaks that I've had.
Yeah.
Joe is just like, we play this game of racing, and Joe is just really good at this game. And that's like the most fun thing. As frustrating as it is for me to not win, the most fun thing for me is to like play somebody at this game that's also like really good at this game. When I go and I drive away, yeah, that's nice to do, but it's not as fun. You're not in the same like hunt. And so to have somebody that's like really good at this game and like obviously like beats you, it's tough, but it's fun. And it's nice that you have somebody that, he doesn't beat you like he knocks you off the track. We go like toe for toe, and I've been beaten pretty much, on all of them. So yeah, it weighs on you in the sense that like I want it more than I ever have. And even at the beginning of this season, I wasn't supposed to race the Winter Series. We were gonna kind of take a break as a team, but then I saw Joe had entered, and I texted Mike that day and was like, hey man, you gotta let me race. And he's like, let me see what I can do. And he got it set up. But that's how it is. It's like, man, I like that I get to go race somebody that just like plays the game the way it's supposed to be played and does it at like a high level. And like that's what we're here to do. We're here to just like duke it out. And so yeah, last week I messed it up, or for the first round I messed it up. I finally had it, and I kind of choked on that one. But we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going at it. And he can't let off, and we can't let off. We have to keep trying our best. And even today, we're trying things that we don't normally try just so we can have something on Sunday. We're experimenting outside of like what we normally do, and that's like the name of the game, is like development and growing, and that's what it's all about. And so like to actually be able to do that at a high level is, it's amazing. It's so much fun. And yeah, obviously it's more fun to win, but it's still like a really good time to race them.
You talk about enjoying the process of it, right? Like you've been on the other end. You've been where you dominated so much at points that drivers start to get desperate, and they do wreck you. Everyone has thoughts cross their mind, but what's been the restraint? How have you held yourself back every time you maybe think of, all right, I could bonsai it here, and yeah, this would really, it would cross a line, but you've withheld yourself from that in a way that I think most drivers probably wouldn't, especially younger ones that maybe don't, whether it's reputation or whatnot. What's done that?
I think the biggest thing is more or less, I want to win, like, mano a mano. I don't want to win because of some mess, The last race was one of those ones where it was like, I did everything right 99% of the session, and I messed up the last 1%, and he made me pay. And, when I race him, there's never been a moment that I feel that I've been, like, dirtied, and when you get that respect, I don't want to beat him off of something like that, and really the win, it's not the win that's important, it's beating your competitor. And I want to win because I won. I don't want to win because I doored him and he went off the track, and that's how you win. It would feel nice to get the win, but, it's for me at this point. I want to win because I did everything right. And so that's why I think the mutual respect between us is good, because I think, when it comes down to it, there's a respect of like neither one of us wants to win that way. And we both respect the game and we respect the racing, and we just want to beat each other within the rules, you know, and nobody really wants to do anything too dirty. But I mean, I hear it. I mean, everybody tells me, like, just knock him off for once and just beat him. And like, you feel that. You're like, dude, like, you're going into the corner and he's blocking. You're like, I could just go flat out right now and I would have this. But like, that's not how you want to do it, right? And like, I don't think that's the right way to do it. I think the right way is to go, you know, beat them fair and square. And so when that happens, I'll be really happy, you know, and I don't want it to happen off of some fluke, you know. I want it to be, you know, I won because I won. You know, at this point, it's for me.
You both are super smart drivers too, and you know, you could see both of you guys almost basically kind of crossing the wake as if you were almost, you know, again, wakeboarding behind a boat with the dirty air at the first race. Whenever either one of you was in front, the other one was doing a drastically different line. When you've been able to follow him and he's been able to follow you, what are stuff you pick up that he's inherently, wow, I admire how good he is at this part of the game?
His tire management is what has always been the biggest thing for me. He has a good ability of like not pushing the cart early in the run, and he's able to drive at like, I always say he's able to drive at like 90% really fast. And when he needs to go to 100%, he can go to 100%. To where my driving style is always, you know, like I can drive at 95%, but it's hard for me to go down fast at like 90%. And so whenever I watch him, you always see in the first couple laps, he's slow. And not slow and like he's going to drop back, but he manages just enough. And normally he'll sit in second or third and just sit there and sit there and sit there until he starts to see someone break away, and then he gives it the extra 10% he needs to catch back up, or he gives it the little bit to, you know, be there in the final. And it always comes down to, you know, in the end, he's the reason I feel that I've lost the races is the last 7 laps, 8 laps, he's got about a half tenth on me. And, you know, when you're racing at 100%, that half tenth is hard to find. And so when he's at 95% and that half tenth's that other 5% that he's just got to go a little bit deeper and push it a little bit more, it's easier, you know, and he's able to do that. But it doesn't start, you know, in the final. It started earlier in the week and learning what setups to run and how to manage his tires. And so that's something I really learned from him. And I think, you know, last race I did a much better job with it. You know, he left for a year in the U.S., and so I haven't really got to race him. But what I was really working on during that time is the tire management and managing it. I think I've done a much better job with it from the Supernats to now, and I think that's why I was there in the first round and in the second round. In the final laps, it's like I was able to compete. It's just learning how to be in that position, you know, and learning how to manage that spot that I have not really been in, you know, in all my years. That's a new area for me. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is his tire management is really good. And he doesn't panic a lot when he falls back. So, you know, he's able to just stay there. And so right now, I think that's where my learning curve is at, you know, 11 seasons in senior, is really learning how to manage the tires a little bit better and being in a better spot those last 5 laps and being like really strategic on where in the race you're fast, because that's something, you know, I've never really had to deal with. It's just like go fast from the beginning to the end and you can stretch away and you can win, where now it's like, you know, where do you actually want to be fast and when do you want to be fast, because you have so much control of that during the race. And yeah, I'm getting better at it, but I think that's where the difference is, and he's really strong there.
He's not the only guy you've obviously had rivalries with, good or, you know, maybe less so good blood, but you know, to be with him over the last couple of years and just in general, you know, you're basically the guy that has been racing probably in more of our headline broadcasted events than about anybody else in the marquee classes. So in this era, compared to before we existed, what's been different from your shoes? I mean, you already kind of had a brand and name and likeness out there from the YouTube following you built up, but what's it like from Ryan Norberg's position?
Well, I think there's highs and lows to it. I think, you know, when you're working your way through the field, it's really good to be in my shoes, because when you're working your way through the field, and even Joe said this, a lot of the kids know who you are and they kind of like wave you by, you know, where if you're somebody that nobody knows, they'll fight you tooth and nail the whole time. So there's times where your name and your likeness really helps out quite a bit. But then there's other times where it's the complete opposite, where, you know, you're racing people and they just like door you because they don't want to lose to you. And I think that's why I've had bitter rivalries in the past, because you get to the point where I have been with Joe, where you're just like, dude, like, I don't really care. Like, I just gotta win. And I don't blame anybody for doing it. You know, you get, you know, desperate in a sense of you just want to beat them, you know, and, yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably more respectful towards Joe because I've been on his side of it, so I see it, and that's not really, you know, how I would like it to happen. But yeah, I mean, I've always had a name because I've always been winning, and the Kart Chaser stuff has made my name bigger for sure. But it's more just learning the balance, and you know, once you get kind of to a peak, and then there's like a plateau where it's like, you know, people can't hate you more than they do, you know? So it's like, I've kind of gotten to the point, I feel like, where it's like, I mean, I don't think anybody can hate me more than they do, or like want to beat me more than they already have. So yeah, I think I've passed that equilibrium to where it's just kind of like coasting. And now it's more like, you know, you get the European guys like McQueen and like, you know, Joe and like Kai, that they hear my name and they want to come over here and race me too. And so it's nice to be able to do that and to talk to these guys and have like a mutual respect before you've even met, because they know who I am, and you know, and we can kind of go at it with one another, and there's like a mutual respect for one another because they've seen me race and I've seen them race over there. So, you know, we have some understanding that we're going to race each other well, you know. And so I think that's the more fun part of it now, is like meeting people all across the world that are very good and they know who you are and they respect you before you've even gone on the track. It's nice.
And I mean, that's the good part, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, we've seen plenty of drivers have moments where they've, in one way or another, angered the audience. In your case, your angering the audience has been dominance. And it's not just the audience, right? There's been periods where you and I have talked and you felt like, man, everyone in the pits is hating you.
Yeah.
So what was it like to go through that era of, say, the end of 22 and you know, even the end of maybe 2021 or some of those other dominant? I mean, you were dominant in 2019 too.
Yeah.
You know,
look, for me to come up here and be like, oh, it was hard. It's like, you know, I begged for the spotlight. I begged to be first. I begged to dominate. And then, you know, people obviously don't like that. And not that they don't like that. It's just the same as like, they just want to beat you. And so like, even for me, you know, when I want to beat somebody, I can't be friends with them. You know, with Joe, it's hard because you know, Joe and I are very friendly off the racetrack, but like, I can't be texting him and being like, you know, nice when we're going to compete, because it's so hard to like, you know, you want to beat someone so bad, you can't be friends with the person. Like it's too hard.
It's hard to turn it off.
You know, it's hard to turn it off. And so, you know, Joe and I think, you know, growing older, I've been able to manage that better, but I don't take it personally, because a lot of these people, like, you know, I meet them, you know, 3 months later and we're friends. You know, like Tulio and I had our like beef for a little bit, and now, you know, we're all good, and like we talk, and like even Garrison and I have had troubles in the past, and we're really close. And so, yeah, I mean, it's tough at the time because you kind of feel isolated and on an island, but to say I didn't bring it on myself would be like naive, because I asked for it. You know, I could stop racing and it would all go away.
Yeah.
And, you know, that would fix all my problems. I'd be friends with a lot of people. But, you know, that's not what I want to do. And so that's just the way it's going to be, you know, and there's going to be people that want to beat you and they're going to race you hard, and that's just the way it's going to be.
I've asked the other drivers this, and I feel like with you, I almost need to kind of stipulate and say, well, I want you to go deeper, and that's of things you change or things you'd like to see out of karting, because you've obviously taken a big stab at a variety of different ways to run the sport or to do things in the sport, right? You've kind of pioneered this professional driver/driver coach era in the States. You've pioneered drivers really taking their brands to the next level, and you promoted your own race as an all-star pro built for fans race that was expensive. So, you know, now I think probably, I guess maybe having tasted and tried a lot, and you know, you look back on that with a level head, what do you say, I think our sport should do this or do that?
Well, I think, you know, it's hard because now that I've started my own like little team, you know, I see both sides a lot more. You know, I feel like in the past year or so, I was I would say more naive to the team side in the margins that they have. Now that I've started my team, just on the small level the margins are a lot tighter than you think. And so when I was like, oh, we should do a pro race or whatever, and it's difficult for these teams because, to try something new means potentially losing quite a bit of money. And so, obviously I still would love to see the sport of karting at a professional level where it's like my race. That was one thing that I was really happy with, is it's kind of almost exactly what I would like to see. Like, your professional guys that are in there, and then you have your semi-pro guys that are brought in there to duke it out with the guys that are the best. And that's what I like. And I like that the races are, people are getting different in how they're structuring the races, like the pro show is an example. I would like to see more experimentation with like how the races, are built, and the different challenges instead of the standard like, pre-final, final, or 3 heats and a final. It's interesting. That's why in my race I did the Australian Pursuit where I knocked people out of it, because I think it's just different and it changes it up and it's fun to have something new. But yeah, I think I was naive when I first did it, and I think, the margins are thin. But I would like to see more outside attention be brought into the sport, and I think you guys do a great job in like bringing eyes to this sport. And I think it needs a lot more eyes to get to the point where we can bring some outside people in, and then do a series the way we really want to. And I think it starts by not just you being one of the big people, but it starts by, my channel doing well, and the fact that it brings vlogger people into the sport, and these other kids that have big social media followings of karting, bringing people in. I think it takes a lot of people to commutatively bring all these eyes into the sport so that you could get some more sponsors and do races the way we've talked about in the past, where you have big purses and big paydays for the drivers. But I think, like you said, my goal throughout my whole thing is to make a way for drivers. And as much as these drivers get upset having to race me, me being out there helps them get a job, and them being out there helps me get a job. The same way Joe's out there to sell Kart Republics, I'm out there to sell Cosmics. And it's the same way for, when Keeble was on the Sodi, it's like we're all there and we race with each other, but at the same time we got to be thankful that we're all out there, because if they weren't out there, we'd all be out of a job. And so having that competition is really what keeps our doors going. And I think the more competition we have, the more Europeans that come over, the more McQueens with the energies, and the more people that come over and try to start fighting and taking, a piece of the pie out here, it's better for the drivers, because, there's more value in having you be out there and promoting a name, and I think, once we get to the point where we can bring some money in for the series to where they can start awarding bigger prizes, I think, that would be awesome. It's just, obviously it's a lot tougher than I was originally thinking.
At the same point too, you look at like late model racing. You and Joe are fantastic meter sticks for kids that turn 15 or 16, right? Like comparing, let's say, Connor to some of the other rookie classes that you've gone head to head with. Connor was one of the kids that, was extremely smart on track, was extremely fast, and could beat any professional karting driver on the right day, a lot of the time. So it also launches them and makes them look better, whereas, plenty of other racing series that kids that are trying to go into other levels of motorsport, they aren't measured. It's like, well, they were good, but they might only be good in their class.
Exactly.
So
I would agree. I think that's why a lot of the guys want you to be out there. Even when I'm not racing, like the road tax race and the rock race are not racing, people are like, oh, why aren't you out there? And it's like, those are the same people that are like, oh, he's out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's true. They like that benchmark of like, we know this guy's established and is good, so if I beat him, I'm good, right? And it's good to have that. I think that's great. I think that's part of the whole sport, is like, you have to have your benchmark guys. And it's nice that we have more people coming in from Europe to like help set another benchmark of like, they're good, but how good are they? And it's like, okay, well, the Europeans are here and we're still competing. So, okay, they're world level good, which is like, it's nice to see. And so I think it's good for the sport. And I think it's, there's times where it has its negatives, because I think it works in the other way where the kids get discouraged easy and they're like, I'll just go to cars.
Yeah.
But I think the sport being harder is always, better. If it's more difficult for people to win, that's the way it should be. It shouldn't be easy.
Now, having seen and obviously run your business at the local and the regional level, is there anything you've kind of learned or seen or seen maybe some opportunities and stuff like that? Having been on the business side of it and kind of almost refreshing probably what that culture is like.
Well, I mean, on the business side of the series was one thing. I mean, again, it was like that was a whole element of like learning the risk of all these series, like Tom and Mark and the Rock guys. There's so much more risk than you think. It's nice when you have like a group of drivers that are like committed to you. Like, Tom's made a great brand for himself, so he's got his 200 drivers that are gonna almost every time gonna show up. So that's awesome, but to get to that point where you have your guys that are gonna come, rain or shine, that's very difficult. And it's the same with the teams. It's good when it's good, but it's hard when it's not, because you can't not show up to the race. If you have 6 guys going and you're doing good and your margins are great, well, if 4 of them cancel and you still have 2 guys, you're really not making any money. And you're more than likely losing money between all the stuff you got to bring out there, the wear and tear on your equipment, but you still have to go because you made a commitment to people. And so that's the other aspect of it. It's, again, that risk of like, when it's good, like when Tom has 350 drivers, that's awesome. But when he buys, tires for 350 drivers and 150 show up, he's going to be eating it for a while. And so I think more that I've learned is just, I have a lot more respect for all of these guys, because the numbers are a lot more than you think. And, we could look at like an RPG and you're like, oh, they're always full. Like, they're always doing well. And it's like, that's true. We always have, a lot of guys, but it's hard. If you lose, 5 or 6 guys and you got 20 guys employed that weekend, like you're not doing as well as you were anticipating. And that's the same for a lot of these teams. You hire mechanics, you hire people, and people cancel, and that's normal. But your margins just sway so much that it's just a tough business to be in. And I think learning that more of it, you just have a lot more respect for the people involved. And even my race, even like a year ago, I was a little naive to that. And like, oh, they get free parking and all this stuff. It's like, oh, that's, what more do they need? And it's like, there's quite a bit more that you need.
Yeah.
Like, even for myself, it's like the parking's the cheapest part of the whole thing. Like, you want a lot more. So, I think, when I do my next race, that's now knowing both sides of it, it's going to structure the payouts a lot more. It's going to structure a lot of the stuff a lot more differently, so that it's easier for everybody, and it's easier on the drivers and on the teams.
Now, on the fun side of things for this year driving and looking ahead to 2025, you've got obviously the number 1 plate back in SCUSA. You have the number 2 plate in USPKS. What's a successful year for you? And do you, I guess, look at this year any bit different than where we were 365 days ago when you had the number 2 and the number 1 plates flip-flopped?
That's true. I didn't think about it. No, I mean, for me, I want to win as much as possible. That's the goal. Outside of obviously winning, it's trying to be more involved with RPG and the national level stuff. I'm really trying to coordinate my team in a way that my regional team is kind of the stomping ground where you learn how to compete on a national level, and then transferring that over, kind of taking the drivers and giving them to RPG, and then keeping that ball rolling and that momentum. So on the driving side, yeah, go compete, go dominate. But then on the business side of that, trying to find that pathway up, and we were able to do it with quite a few of our drivers already, of my drivers, bringing them to RPG and transferring them over, and it's worked really well. So yeah, I think that's my level of success, is how many guys can I take from small regional local races in SSKC to a USPKS or a SCUSA, and trying to see how they do racing against the big guys. And I think doing that while also maintaining driving well is going to be my measure of success. If I can kind of handle all of that, then I'll be happy.
And can we expect a Ryan win this weekend over Joe?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the last one really got the monkey off my back. I mean, I led for the whole thing, so I'm much more confident in the fact that I know I can do it. Before there was a period of time where I was like, oh, dude, I don't know if you can do it. But I know I can. I just, I got in my own way the last time. Before, it was like I I couldn't really get over the hump. And now it's like I got over the hump, I just, stepped on my own foot, and yeah, I messed it up. So like, I know I can do it. I just got to like not mess it up, which I'll be fine, if it happens again. So,
are you going to be able to carve out some celebration time Sunday night if you do get through the weekend?
We got rock the next day. So, I mean, we got to like come back, tear down, and get set up. So, maybe after rock. If I win after rock, then I'll celebrate.
What I had Joe do this to you. We'll play these together. You guys will see them when they're cut together.
Okay.
What would be a message directly to him? If you could say anything to him, about what you guys have done, the journey, the path you guys have been on, and obviously looking ahead to the races you have to come.
Well, I mean, obviously, happy he's kept it, really clean and respectful. I'm really happy about that. But this year, I think it's not going to be so easy. I think he's had an advantage in the past, and he's not going to have it. So, yeah, I hope he comes more racing in the U.S. because I think it's going to be a lot tougher than it was in the past.
He said also in his message to you that you taught him craps. It was I heard he was really lucky the one of the 2 nights he went out, especially in blackjack. I heard he doesn't know how to play that game at all, and he won more than anybody else.
No, he did. And to be fair, I played with him out of I was trying to show him how to play craps, and in like 15 minutes we lost like $200.
Oh.
But then he rolled for like 30 minutes and we won it all back. So it was like he did a really good job rolling. And then we played blackjack for way too long and lost a lot of money. But I mean, it's fun. It's really hard to be like, I have this message for Joe because I talk to Joe a lot, and like we're friends, outside of this. So, it's like I said, that balance is hard because you're like, it's the same with me and Garrison. Like we race hard all the time, and it's hard to be like, rude to each other off the track. But yeah, I mean, we have fun, and the thing that I really like about Joe is like when helmets are down and visors down, like he doesn't treat me any different than he would somebody else. He probably races me a little bit more respectfully than some other drivers, but it's the same for me. There's drivers, you've got to kind of lean on to get by. But I like that. I like that when, off the track, we can like be like, dude, like that was awesome, like good race. Like that was tough. And then, when we get on the track, it's like, I'm coming for him, like hard, we're gonna fight hard. So, yeah, it's cool. It's a cool relationship.
Well, why should fans root for you over him? What's the last bit you would say to someone to go?
For the first time ever, I think I'm the underdog. I think, root for the guy that hasn't done it. I mean, it's crazy to say that, but yeah, I haven't, come, like, I got it, I want to get it done. Like, it would be like lightning striking, it'd be the first time it's happening. So, yeah, root for me because, I'm going to make it happen. And it's not, with Joe, it's, if he's fast, it's, he's going to check out. And if I'm fast, it's going to be a hard race. And so that's what you guys should root for me because it's going to be entertaining. I think the last couple weekends showed that when I'm there, it's entertaining. So it's going to be that way.
Sweet. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, man.